F1 24 Driver Career Mode, Season 2, Round number 12, the Singapore Grand Prix. We're back on F1 24 once again, this time going to Singapore for the first time on this game. A track that I quite enjoy driving around actually. And yeah, we'll see how we go. Looking at the R&D, not a lot of change from last time out in Baku. The only real difference is Red Bull have had a little bit of an uptick, Ferrari a bit more of an uptick, so you know they've been ridiculously quick even compared to where they are in R&D earlier in the season. So moving away from Mercedes now, hopefully they can, you know, for their sake, they can be even better than they have been. We are still though at the top at McLaren, so we'll have to see if we can actually do anything with that. We've had 2 second place finishes in a row, 2 podiums, back-to-back podiums, but yeah, haven't been able to step on the top step of the podium since China round 3. We won round 1 in Australia, we won round 3 in China. We've had back-to-back podiums the last 2 races, but still no win for us. So since China. So let's see if we can do anything here in Singapore. Q1 here going pretty well, feeling nice on this Singapore circuit. I just quite, you know, of all the street circuits, I think Singapore's one of my favorite. It's fun to drive. It's decent to race on. I mean, being a street circuit, it's never one of the best circuits for racing, but it is one of the better of the street circuits. Q1 and both Hasses are out. Hulkenberg in last position. Bit of a surprise there from those two guys. Both Saubers also out and Esteban Ocon in the Alpine. Both Williams moving through to Q2. Now that Williams is the 6th quickest car on the grid. It is kind of the first car after the big top 5 teams. But they are on R&D, they are pretty much level with Haas. So to have both Hasses out in Q1 and Hulkenberg in literally dead last is pretty strange, pretty unseen here in Baku. So sorry, in Singapore. So yeah, very unusual there. Both Williams getting through Q2 here, and we're on for a pretty good time at the moment. Green and green in on this second lap, and we are just really throwing the car around and feeling very confident in the car, to be honest. I was really enjoying how I was driving here, and we actually go quickest in Q2, and Perez is P3 as well, with Verstappen in the middle. But yeah, our McLaren and me in particular looking very good here in Singapore. Both Williams are out this time though in Q2, both V-carbs, RBs, whatever you want to call them, also out, and then the other Alpine of Pierre Gasly. And now as we get into Q3 here for our final flying lap here, we're currently sitting P7 after our first flying lap on a used set of tyres. This is the lap on the brand new set of tyres. Piastri goes quickest there with a 1:27.1, then eclipsed by Alonso, a 1:27.0. So Alonso is going to be the lead Aston Martin here. They seem to be, other than Leclerc in the Ferrari, the Aston Martins are both doing very well. You know, Piastri is 2nd in the championship. Alonso is 4th, just behind us in the championship, but has been pretty good recently. You know, he's got a couple of wins to his name this season, so he's going to be ahead of Piastri on the grid, which I guess is good for us because, you know, we are, I mean, Alonso's only just, I think he's like 10 points behind us in the championship. But of course, Piastri's ahead of us. Leclerc is ahead of us in the Ferrari. So if we can do better than him, that would be great. We're purple through the first sector, green through the second sector. We're on for a pretty good time here. I'm just feeling really good in this car on this track. Just, you know, driving really well. Honestly loving just driving in this game at the moment. Now that I'm properly used to my Moser racing wheel, I'm loving it. It feels so good, so much better than the G29 that I used to use. As we cross the line for our final lap here, it's not pole position for us, but it's P3, and we set exactly the same time as Oscar Piastri in 2nd, but because he set the lap time first, he starts 2nd on the grid. It's Alonso P1, but yeah, exactly the same time for myself and Piastri. Verstappen in P4, Leclerc's only P5, so not as good of a result for him. The Red Bulls both looking a little bit better here actually, with Norris in 6th, my teammate Perez in 7th.
Marina Bay hosted a Grand Prix that briefly ran in the 60s and 70s, but the Garden City re-entered the calendar for good in 2008. We missed it for a couple of years, but it was great to come back to the Singapore Grand Prix. Things have changed slightly around the Marina Bay circuit. 4 corners have been taken out, the lap length reduced to just over 3 miles. That might be a welcome relief to the drivers, might be even more of a relief for their brakes. It's time to see how our drivers are stacking up after yesterday's exciting qualifying session. Fernando Alonso lines up on pole position, and Oscar Piastri completes the front row. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Shaw, Verstappen, Leclerc, Perez, Russell, Hamilton, Sainz, Tsunoda, Gasly, Stroll, Sargent, Bottas, Norris, Magnussen, Ocon, Joe, Hulkenberg, and Alex Albon picks up the last spot on the grid. Now it's almost time for lights out, so let's go down to the track.
Here we go, a couple of grid penalties for Albon and Norris. They start further down the order, but it's 5 red lights out for the Singapore Grand Prix. It's a decent start for us, although Verstappen seems to have got a better start than us. On the left there, he's having a little look, but we're going to stay around the outside into turn 1 and keep 3rd position. It is line astern, Alonso, Piastri, myself, Verstappen, Leclerc, Perez, the top 6 at least, all staying in the exact same positions here off the start. As we continue on here, Verstappen right on our tail here. Actually, the Red Bulls haven't looked massively quick this season. I don't even know, I think Verstappen may have had a podium and Norris may have had a podium. Yeah, I believe they were both on the podium earlier in the season, but neither Red Bull driver has had a win this season. Verstappen is of course the defending Drivers' Champion from last season, and he hasn't had a single win this season, so he'll be looking for an uptick in performance. That Red Bull has never been the quickest car. McLaren and Aston Martin have always been ahead of it, but the Red Bull's always been up there, ahead of Ferrari, definitely. But, you know, Leclerc has been getting more out of the car, and yeah, Verstappen just hasn't really been able to do anything, but he is putting a little bit of pressure on me here, actually. Alonso and Piastri up ahead are kind of pulling away a little bit at times, and I'm under more pressure from Verstappen behind than I'm putting pressure on Piastri. Leclerc's actually fallen back over a second behind Verstappen there in 5th position, so not the best start for Leclerc, but we come to the end of this lap, no changes at the front. We will continue on in 3rd position and try chasing after these guys, and hopefully to get away from Verstappen, because yeah, he has had a very good lap here, really staying on the back of us here. Piastri though seems to be struggling a little bit. He's now got quite a big gap to Alonso up ahead. Alonso's running away with this. We sense an opportunity into turn 1 on Piastri. We go for the move around the outside, just about stay within the lines, but Piastri's going to fight this one through the next corner. We're going to be side by side, bit of wheel spin off the rear wheels coming out of that corner there into the next right-hander. We're taking a very, very tight line. That is going to affect us, and it means that Piastri is going to get the better run out of the corner. We're not going to have DRS either, which then means Verstappen is going to start attacking us here, but we're going to defend to the inside. He tries to go around the outside. He's going to be side by side with us now, Verstappen. We go from looking at a position on Piastri to defending a position from Verstappen, which we do manage to do, but that has lost us a little bit of time to Oscar Piastri up ahead, and Fernando Alonso is now 3.5 seconds up the road. Few laps later, and now Piastri has just broken the 1 second mark to us, so we're actually now definitely under more pressure from Verstappen than we are putting on Piastri, because Verstappen has DRS on us. We do not have DRS on Piastri, so this is a bit difficult for us here. However, a few laps later, Verstappen falls off the ball a bit, and Leclerc is now coming into his own. He's now fighting Verstappen and getting past Max Verstappen. That puts the championship leader, Charles Leclerc, up into P4. He's now coming into his own later on in this race. A few laps later, and we've caught back up to Piastri again, who does seem to be struggling a bit compared to his teammate. You know, Alonso is commanding this race at the moment. This time we're going to go for the overtake down this straight here, which I think is the better place to go for it, and we get around the outside and up into P2 past Oscar Piastri. We now split the 2 Aston Martins. Carlos Sainz in the other Ferrari is sensing a move on Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton's been stuck behind his teammate George Russell for this whole race, Russell's a long way off Perez up ahead, but Hamilton just hasn't been making a move. So Sainz senses the opportunity and goes for the move himself. These guys are still side by side through these last couple of corners, but Sainz will get ahead to split the two Mercedes, get up into 8th position for the Spaniard. He's going to be looking at a better result this time after a DNF in Baku. A few laps later, we are now almost on the heels of Fernando Alonso. We've been putting in some good laps here to catch up to Fernando, and we're just about sneaking within that second marker as we come to the end of lap 13, which means we are going to have DRS for the end of this lap. Then by lap 15, we're now right up behind Fernando Alonso. We are, I believe, coming in this lap for our one and only pit stop, and we're going to sense a move before we make that pit stop around the outside of Alonso, just like we did on Piastri, and we now take the lead of the Singapore Grand Prix. Could this be our time? Well, at the end of that lap, we're going to come into the pits. Alonso's going to continue on. We come into the pits here for our pit stop onto the hard compound tyres. In we go, and as we change the tyres, the rear left is slow getting that tyre off. We are out of the pits. Thankfully, it's not a ridiculously slow pit stop, a 5-second though, which is about twice as long as it should have been. And could that cost us? Well, we're still ahead of Piastri, who came into the pits the same time as us, but are we going to lose position to Fernando Alonso? And as we come out of the pits here, unfortunately, we just come out behind Lando Norris, who of course took a grid penalty, and we're now going to be stuck behind him here, who hasn't pitted yet. And unfortunately, we do get stuck behind him this whole lap, and he definitely costs us even more time here to Fernando Alonso, who will come in on this lap. And as we come to the end of this lap, I'm just trying to go as quick as we can to try and get any position back here. We're going to get past Perez. Alonso, there he is, coming out of the pits right there, and he is going to get out ahead of us, unfortunately. So we have lost the race lead to Fernando Alonso. Now we've got to do all that work again. Pierre Gasly in the Alpine, sizing up a move on Lance Stroll at the moment down the straight here. He's going for the move to the inside, but what's that? It looks like he's slowing down, and he's got an engine problem. That is Pierre Gasly with an engine issue and out of this race. Our first retirement of this Singapore Grand Prix. Then we have Sergio Perez currently behind Max Verstappen. Of course, these two previous teammates last season, but Perez this time in the better car, going around the outside to get up into P5. Good move there for Perez. Now, a few laps later, lap 22, we're back on the back of Alonso once again. We want to make this move now because we lost it in the pits. Purple sector 1 with that DRS. Same move that we did before. And we're back up into the lead of this race with the fastest lap as well in the bag. So that is what we want. Carlos Sainz also once again having to make another move on Hamilton as he has a massive moment there. That is a ridiculous save from Carlos Sainz, and he gets the move on Hamilton to boot. Russell's actually fallen behind his teammate now because Hamilton came into the pits first. And actually got the undercut on Russell, which meant that Sainz also had to re-overtake Hamilton, but he has now made that move with that sketchy move. And then all of a sudden, lap 25, we get a red flag. There is a red flag here. I don't know what has gone on, but the race has been red flagged, and we have to look at Lando Norris, who, let's be honest, has not been having a good season here at his first season in Red Bull. He comes around the first couple of corners and just spins the car around, and that's Ocon right there, who gets whacked into by Stroll. And this is a disaster. This is an absolute disaster for Lando Norris. He has had such a poor season. He'll be very annoyed that he went from McLaren to Red Bull because he's not having a good time of it. There is the cockpit kind of view, or the T-cam view from Norris's perspective. Here we have a look at it from Ocon's perspective. He sees Norris spin around, can't do anything about it, has to pull up there, then gets rear-ended by Stroll. We'll also see Stroll's point of view here, just drives right into the back of Ocon. Ridiculous stuff there from Lance Stroll. As now we get underway for the rest of this race, we are now onto a set of soft compound tyres. We saved a set of softs from qualifying. I try and save a set just in case of situations like this, which means that we should have an advantage here. Piastri, Alonso and Leclerc are all on mediums. By the way, off the start there, Piastri has gotten ahead of Fernando Alonso. So that is pretty big. Piastri was actually looking before the red flag. He was potentially going to get overtaken by Charles Leclerc, but yeah, he's now actually got up to P2, so that's going to be very helpful for him in the championship. Looking back here, and Kevin Magnussen fighting with Yuki Tsunoda over the P10 position, that final points position. Magnussen, of course, didn't have a good qualifying. He was out in Q1, but has made his way back up the order a little bit here and is now fighting for a points position. Tsunoda, though, would love that points position in the V-carb, as these guys are still side by side down the straight here. The kink to the right, still side by side into the next left-hander. Magnussen, though, around the outside and getting that P10 position. Big there for Kevin Magnussen to score another point here in Singapore. He'll be happy if he can come home with that result. Lap 29, and although we're on the soft tyre and Piastri and the cars behind down to Verstappen are on mediums, we're not pulling away. We're not pulling away from these guys. They must really be going for it on their set of medium tyres. So we're having to really push here on these soft compound tyres. But as we get to lap 31 here and we get to the final point where, you know, we could be overtaken, I'm going to use as much ERS as I can here, because this is where they seem to want to make the overtakes. Piastri goes to the inside. He's going to try and make the move. We brake as late as we can, and we are going to stay in the lead of this race. That was our biggest threat right there. And as we come around the final couple of corners, we are finally going to win another race. We won in round 1. We won in round 3. It's going to take us till round 12 Singapore, but we are going to win again. We win the Singapore Grand Prix. We needed this result.
And let's not underestimate how hard it is for these drivers to know exactly what's happening with the conditions. When you're in the car, you have drops falling onto your visor. It's hard to know whether those drops are actually sticking to the track, if water's building up, or if it's still dry. So it's a tough call to make, and it is really a question of risk versus reward. So great decisions made by this driver today.
Our drivers are making their way out for the podium celebrations, and it's going to be McLaren picking up the winner's trophy. Congratulations to the entire team for that fantastic performance.
This is what we needed. We needed another win here to keep us in the championship. We've been pretty consistent in the last couple of races, you know, 2 second places in a row. We finally get another win. It's been since round 3 where we last got a win. We, of course, won the first round of the championship. It is now round 12. Only 4 more rounds to go after this one now. We need to keep this consistency going and yeah, get another win. Piastri, unfortunately for us, finishes in 2nd. It would have been better for him to be 3rd behind Alonso. He picks up the fastest lap as well, which is a bit unfortunate because of course he is 2nd in the championship, just ahead of us. Leclerc doesn't manage to get on the podium this time, actually, despite Ferrari having an uptick in R&D performance. He actually doesn't get on the podium this time, but he does manage to finish in P4 ahead of Max Verstappen. Carlos Sainz P6, who manages to get ahead of Fernando Alonso. In the Drivers' Championship, though, Leclerc still leads 18 points ahead of Piastri, but then we are only 20 points now behind Piastri in 3rd place and only 38 points behind Leclerc. We need to keep putting these performances in if we want a chance in this championship. We've got a bit of form going now over these last 3 rounds. Let's keep that going for the next few rounds, although I believe I'm probably going to have to take a grid penalty next race in Mexico. And in the Constructors, Aston Martin's still a fair way out in the lead from Ferrari in 2nd and McLaren in 3rd. Mercedes still just ahead of Red Bull. Then you've got Williams on 20 points in a pretty decent 6th and a pretty, you know, confirmed 6th at the moment, to be honest, with then Haas 7th, RB 8th, Alpine 9th, and Sauber the only team yet to score in 10th. But that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, please go ahead, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.